So let's start with my piece. And my piece is something that I have been seeing for the last, definitely for the last 3-4 years as a trend in the marketplace. And funny enough, last year, I managed to find out there was actually a term that I invented for that trend I was seeing in the marketplace, which is called Servitization. It's obviously a typical American term, so some people have what the heck is Servitization? Hopefully I will explain to you what it is. But it is profound. It is a massive change that is really affecting manufacturing and the manufacturing industry, and it's already affecting the manufacturing industry in the UK and globally as well. And it's really changing the way manufacturers, especially on the high-end manufacturing, is dealing with customers and the expectation customers has on those companies. So I want to share, what is happening out there, because I'm sure you will find it very interesting, as I do myself. So, as I mentioned, servitization is about manufacturers, and I'm saying here in the widest way possible. We're talking about software houses. We manufacture software. We sell software. We sell products. So the likes of Epicor, Hydra, SAP, they are all manufacturers of software. Hardware, the Ciscos of this world. High-tech engineering, GE, Aston, Nixdorf. They are beginning, and they have been building up revenue streams from something we call advanced services. So probably you know more about advanced services than servitization, but it's exactly what it is. The servitization is the trend. And again, it involves a total change of the business model of these companies, and obviously an organizational transformation, because it's changing the mindset. And it's some fascinating stories that I keep hearing from companies trying to do that, and how difficult that is. Moving from traditionally box shifting or box producing and selling products to selling end-to-end services. So, the traditional model of any of our companies, software, hardware, as we explained before. Here's an example of a company producing diggers, Caterpillar. So what they used to do is manufacture the goods, concentrate on producing very good quality diggers. And the only thing they were looking after were repairs. When things go wrong for the customers, they came back and tried to repair it, spare parts, and obviously the product itself. That was all the responsibility for the manufacturer. So making sure that they produce good quality goods. Then the responsibility to the customer was the rest. Mr. Customer, you need to take care of the disposal of the equipment when it's actually end of life. You need to repair it, you need to monitor that it's working, you have to replace the consumables, so on and so forth. So that was fine, and obviously it's a big investment from the customer point of view. They have to plunge a lot of cash into the asset, and they have to look after the asset, and it depreciates. So what is interesting is this. By this year, the use of performance-based contracts will leap around 65% in some of these industries of the high end. That is a huge percentage of the contracts, which means that the market is demanding a different behavior from the manufacturers, from the producers. They don't want to buy the good anymore, because they're not into maintaining cranes. That's not their job. If you think about a mining company in terms of diggers, the business is moving materials. It's not looking after diggers and lorries and trucks. So this is what is actually happening, and it's been happening gradually from the beginning of, after the turn of the century, but it's becoming more and more pervasive in organizations. And I have a very close example to my friends at Polycom that are going exactly through this process as we speak. So what is the situation? The situation is that the responsibility, the footprint of responsibility is moving from the customer back to the manufacturer. So the manufacturer now is doing installations, end-to-end installations. They're doing maintenance, monitoring, managing the consumables, everything. So much so that the only thing that the customer wants to do is actually make use of the technology. They want to get the outcome. What is the benefit of that? Making holes. They don't want to look after the crane if they can avoid it. Because who is best suited to look after the crane? Obviously, who put it together in the first place. And you think about the same thing applies to software and to any other areas where the asset value is very high. Obviously, that's not applicable to consumer goods. Obviously, it's not there. but definitely for high value assets, it is becoming the norm. So, an interesting example is one is actually very, very real here in the UK, which is Virgin Trains. Virgin Trains are using Alstom trains for the network. And you will be surprised or not, but to know that Virgin doesn't own any of the trains that they are actually operating. They are just getting the service, and the whole management of the trains fleet is done by Aston. So Alstom looks after everything about the trains, and because the business of Virgin is not about trains, it's about moving people. So they're concentrating on what the business is all about, is getting tickets, payments, and moving people from A to B. And they have very stringent SLAs with Alstom to make sure that they have the equipment available, obviously the trains, on time, and the downtime of the equipment on the trains is minimized, so they can actually achieve the network rail SLAs and KPIs that they need to go for. So it is a profound change, because now, obviously, Alstom is not selling the equipment. Obviously, probably, I'm sure they will find a way of monetizing quickly to get some of the value of those assets they produce through leasing, but still they have a full responsibility of the end-to-end life cycle of that train. So what that means is that the interaction changes from setting a box with technology, or big box like a train, to a long-term relationship where you actually get involved in the operations of the customer. And that is a huge, huge, huge change for this. And again, we're seeing it today. So the manufacturer then takes all the responsibility, risk, penalties, and so on. Obviously, they make more money, obviously. And it has a different profile in financial terms because they get a long-term engagement. They don't get the spikes and trying to hit the numbers all the time because they get the renewable managed services in the long term. And we've seen that in IT, those who work in the IT space. We've been talking about managed services for probably 15 years already. The whole trends around software as a service is exactly one example of servitization, when you're taking aspects of the operations where customers don't want to look after servers. We look after the service for them. So obviously, it is a process, and organizations go through different stages trying to extend how far they go into the operations of the customer. It starts from sort of basic services, outcome focus on products provision, so you deliver the product, to the more advanced ones when you focus on the condition of the product, and eventually you manage and focus on the capability and the outcome that you get out of the technology you have, which is called advanced services. And that's a transition, that's a process. And obviously I will show you in a sec the example of Polycom to give you an idea of what is happening. But things like pay-per-use, risk management, and so on, they're all the different terms that are not, or were not usually discussed in manufacturing. Now they're becoming part of the norm. So that obviously brings some very interesting benefits in different angles. It brings benefits society-wise, because obviously localize and captures value in where and the skills where it is required in terms of manufacturers. Obviously now concentrate the know-how, how to get best use of the technologies and maintain them and so on. It's interesting, the environmental aspect, because instead of buying assets, it's about more managing long-term. So now the business is not about how quickly you can just replace your asset, it's how you can keep it for longer. Because if you're the manufacturer, you want to build to last, because otherwise you have to replace, you have to eat the cost yourself. So it changes the whole mentality of how really also manufacturing works. Obviously, improve the commercial resilience, again, in relation with the customers, because now you are not a commodity. You're moving from commodity to value-added services, and you are embedding yourself into the operation. So it's not that, in the case of the mining example, it's not that, okay, now we bought Caterpillar, and next time we buy from another supplier. If you're already embedded into the operation, it's much more difficult to do that, because if you're managing the core of your business. And obviously grow the revenues, actually increase new revenue streams and I will show you also the example on the case of Polycom. And it's very scalable. It can be implemented for medium to large organizations. So the impact Now we see it in customers and providers. The interesting is that generates value in both sides, and that's why this trend, I don't think it's going to stop. It's going to continue going that way, because it's benefits for the customers and it's benefits for the providers and the OEMs. So obviously the customer, great. Look at that stat, which is quite revealing. Cost reduction of 25 to 30%. So you are, instead of having to go and splash a huge amount of money into an asset that is going to be there, and yes, you're going to have to depreciate. You are just renting, making use of the value of the asset. So you can take that money in other areas of the business that will make more impact in R&D, in marketing, and so on, that will help you the business better. In terms of, again, improve investment, focus, so you can really become more competitive. And in the area of the OEMs, obviously it just generates a new revenue streams. The aim of most organizations is to go into the 50-50 split between services and product, which is the ideal sort of mix. And it just changed the profile, financial profile of the business, and also helps in the growth of the business, because services are growing faster than products are growing in many of those industries, which obviously shows this interesting statistic that is on average between 5 to 10% per year, which is quite considerable. Consider this business are multi-billion business in this area of the market. So if we look at our Polycom case, so in the background you can see something that is something that they're very proud of, which is a telepresence suite, which is very you feel like you are in Star Trek when you see, when I get one of those rooms to see how it works. But it's going very well for Polycom. They are implementing this around the world for the big banks and big corporations, especially for managing board meetings, when you have board members dotted around the world, and for very executive level meetings. It is a perfect way of, instead of having to move people around the globe to get the meetings done. So here's Steve, obviously, with his contribution of these bullet points, shows very quickly that this company, which used to be traditionally hardware, selling just teleconferencing and some equipment, now is moving into the software-based solutions. So they're focused on outcomes. I don't think we haven't moved into fully manage the suites on behalf of the customer, or yet.
We certainly have partners that are doing that for our customers, and we're moving more into the managed space ourselves.
There you go. So what I'm saying probably makes some sense. Solution is, obviously, it changes the mindset. Again, it's consultative. It's changing the way that they provide the services to customers. What was quite staggering is to see the change in the weight of services in the profile of the revenue of the business. That it moved from 20% contribution 2 years ago to 35% last year. That's huge jump on the business. And correct me if I'm wrong.
It's in a growing product business as well.
It's in a growing
shrinking product business, therefore services grew. That's also in a growing.
Which is 26% that you said that. So it's growing faster and it's taking on the share of the business, which is quite staggering. And I think your expectation is we're going to hit around 50%, 50-50?
I think we'd like to get to 40, to be honest.
To 40?
In the short term. Yeah.
Okay. So what that means is obviously, and that we're actually going through that process with Steve and the team, is a transformation of the team. Because the team, they're changing the way they work and the way they deliver services, the value they provide. It's not anymore, here's your box, Mr. Customer, go and figure out what you need to do, here's your manuals, and just good luck and bless. But now is, let me help you, we know what we're doing. What you need to do, what you're looking for to work with us is the possibility to have this seamlessly. We look after that for you, we make sure it's there, it does the job, and you just turn up into the meeting room, have your meeting, and we're all happy. That's what they're looking for. So that is a totally different mindset. And obviously, we are, the last point, we are helping them on that process. So, as I said, the opportunities are great, but it brings important challenges. So the business is moving from a reactive break-fix model, which is the traditional model of hardware, to a model of proactive management. And that brings some interesting challenges. From financially, from upfront payments to outcome or per use payments. which again changes the profile of how you could receive the money, cash flow wise. From just shipping the equipment to providing turnkey solutions on site. And from moving from just product-focused quality control to the whole end-to-end life cycle quality control, which is, again, a different perspective. So we were to look at the key phases that a company of this type have to go through: manufacturing, implementation, and support and maintenance. The manufacturing aspect, there's some, obviously the main challenge is that they need to not only produce good products, but products that provide you an efficient way of managing the whole life cycle of the product. It's a different mindset. It's not just something that you just sell it works for 6 months, and somebody else will gonna buy again, because that somebody else is gonna be you. So probably you're gonna be building for 6 months life cycle, you're gonna be building for long life cycles because you have to maintain it. Very important changes in the marketplace technology-wise are driving that and enabling manufacturing to address that. One is, probably you guys have heard before, Internet of Things. That Internet of Things is actually enabling really be able to monitor equipment anywhere they are. And that gives a lot of insight, for example, in telematics, to be able to monitor and manage equipment so you know exactly what is happening when you need to replace it or maintain it. Give an example, Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce, they don't anymore sell engines. They provide service with the engines for the aircrafts. They look after the engines. So they are so sophisticated nowadays that they're monitoring in every single minute what is happening with the engines in every single airplane that they sell. And they have crews of people waiting. If there's anything happening in the air, anything on the multiple sensors they have in the engines, somebody on the ground is waiting with the spare part immediately to actually reduce the downtime, because they are measured and paid on availability of the engines. Because the business of the airlines is moving people very efficiently. Any downtime of the airplanes is very expensive. That's the business, and they're using that technology today. So, in implementation, it's about minimizing the time to enable the service to be ready. Because now, you're not being paid at the beginning. Here you buy your asset, I'm paying you when it's installed or what I'm getting in value out of it. So, obviously, things like really managing with best practice in project management, resourcing, scheduling, having the right tools to make that happen so you can reduce the times and make it more efficient is fundamental, absolutely fundamental. I'll give an example. For example, the mold of Lexmark or Ricoh or Xerox. They're moving from selling printers into something that's called managed printer services. So they just deliver the printers and they charge the customer not for the printer, but for the pages that they have printed. So they record all the information and send the bills every month of how many copies they've done. For that to be efficient, they need to make sure that when the order comes, I want to deploy 5,000 printers across the state of a business, that those printers are on site as soon as possible, installed, implemented, delivered, connected to the central network, and so on. That is the challenge. So you have to make sure you manage that in a very efficient way, because your money is at the end when the printer is actually connected, enabled, and it starts making copies. The last but not least, obviously, once it's enabled, then you have the support and maintenance, which is the life cycle piece of it. So you need to make sure that you maximize your availability, because you are measured against that, and you're probably going to be paid against that. Any downtime, it probably will affect your compensation from the customer. So we, as in Hydra, unfortunately, we cannot help in manufacturing. It's not our bag. We cannot help in support maintenance. It's not our bag either. We can definitely help in the implementation phase and the enablement phase of this part. So we support that through a unique product we have, which is called Hydra PSA, that is designed to standardize the practice of delivering products to customers. So you can shrink the quote to cash and actually be very, very efficient in how you do it. And also, we have ourselves, fun enough, we also, I was victims, or we're taking advantage of the trend of servitization. We have advanced services. We started developing those services. We've been working with our friends of Epicor, and services that complement our technologies, but take away some of the pains that our customers are facing of looking after projects and the administrative part of controlling of programs and projects in the companies. So in order to ensure that the processes are adhered to and people get the value and the information they're looking after and looking for. So we are extending that as a complementary. So you can see we have products and also we are following the servitization trend. So just to finish my piece, hopefully it has come across as a compelling case that the footprint is really changing. Things are happening big time. And I'm sure there will be opportunities, either you guys are in the space that you'll be affected and may opportunities for servitization for yourselves. Obviously, I already know that Polycom and Epic are doing things on that space. But it's also maybe your customers as an opportunity also to help your customers to go through that process as well. But obviously, because it's a big change, there's fundamental changes and you need to support this new model. And obviously we have not all the answers, but we have some answers and some contribution to that part of that trend to support into what is happening in the future. So that's me. Hopefully we find that interesting, mind-provoking, and thank you very much.